Just put them right towards, you're hired. Richard, you're hired. Just put them back on a corner back here so if someone comes in late, they can grab one. Because we're going to go over watering. We're about to turn on the irrigation systems. So as soon as we see it at week's worth of 70-degree weather, which will be the end of this month, first part of April, somewhere in there, it's time to activate your irrigation. We got to cover that because it's timely. Okay, we're live? Okay, good. Yeah, all right. So I gather we are live. I'm glad you all are tuned in online, YouTube, Facebook, and LinkedIn. So we've got, I think, X. Can't hear it? Oh, I guess we don't have a microphone. Oh, okay. Sorry, we're adjusting the microphone for folks in the cloud. And hello, testing. Yes, that's it. Testing. My mother gave me a Mr. Microphone when I was a kid. I've loved one ever since. Oh my gosh. I sit there and just play with my voice. I do it all day long just for entertain myself. Okay, so today's garden class, evergreens. Evergreens that grow here. And you're going to see them, how they look in the winter. This is what evergreens look like. And I put together a mix for you. I put a native mix, a shade-loving mix, and a full sun, bright, hot. I like them prettier, bigger. Red tip Photinia has got to be part of that mix. And then I threw a couple trees on there. Trees are pretty well, you kind of know what they are. Pine. We're in huge swaths of pine, junipers. So I didn't go too heavy on that because you kind of sort of know. I went more of the maybe things you haven't seen or didn't know weren't on your radar mix. I did that. I'm going to do that all in about 45 minutes. I'll leave time for Q&A, and then we'll wrap up in about an hour, hour and 10, something like that. Seem okay? Okay. So my name's Ken. Hi. I'm the owner of the garden center. And so we are very excited because it finally feels like spring. I have things in bloom in my yard. I mean, the gopher plants, full bloom. The winter jasmine, full bloom. Daffodils will bloom this week in my yard. If you're on a north side slope, maybe it'll be the following week, but we're right there on the cusp. It's right here. With that being said, if you're new to the area, this is spring. It will snow again. It'll be frosty again. It'll still happen. It just we do this violent. We don't have to do this slow ramp up to spring. And when it's here like the Midwest does. We go violently into. So we'll go really nice. Oh my God. Oh, it's freezing again. Oh, so you never know. We live in terror at the garden center because our plants. We're dealing with we're puppy dogs. You plant in the ground. We don't want them to be harmed. Frost is not going to kill them, but it'll make them look ugly, so you won't buy them. That's not good. That's why we have so much glass. It just helps us bring things in and protect them and make sure that they're peak health for you all. I think we're in the planting season. I'm doing a lot of planting myself. Containers are being planted. All these things we're talking about today can be planted. Before I start, let me just give a quick shout out and a thank you to Mackenzie Lane for teaching last week's class. She's the third generation showing up. Next weekend, we got a special event just for you all. Actually, it's for us. We like to share with you all. We call it our 62nd Spring Open House. It's been 62 years. We'll be in business. Spring is next week, official. And every spring, we kind of have this. Basically, we introduce new plants, which you'll see this spring. Some of them are brand new, never been seen before. Different color, different shape, different height, different cocktail tree, different. It's just all the new plant introductions. And I invite the growers to come in, and they love it because they don't get off the farm very much. They don't deal with people. They just deal with plants. Some of them are nerdy, kind of. They don't get out much. They got a pocket protector. They got all this. They're very scientific. And a lot of them have more patents than you and I will ever see in the entire room. They create new plants. And so they're coming next weekend. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 15th, 16th, 17th. You're welcome to come. The Saturday class will be, I'm just going to interview them. I don't know where it will go, but if they created this plant, I want Chris to come up and explain, how did you do that? What's going on? Oh my God, it's cool. The mulch people will be here. Mountains of compost. It's interesting. This is industrial size stuff. How'd you make this? There's certain recipes we put together. So we'll just interview down the line and we'll see where it goes. So Friday at 3, I will introduce all the new plants. So some of these are new, most of these are not. They're just regular old plants that are evergreen. But the new ones, the new desert willows, the new things you've never seen, I'll introduce those at 3 on Friday. So that's next weekend. You're invited. Today I want to cover evergreens. So we are famous for our evergreens, huge evergreen forests, and they just do well here. They love our cool winters, bright days. There's something about it. We grow better herbs than anywhere else in the country because it's so bright and dry, which makes evergreens kind of thrive. And so, but it can be confusing because there's so many varieties. So let me start with the native section because that's a lot of folks want low maintenance. These are going to be the pokey, spiky, the ones that kind of bite you if you handle them wrong. Those are natives, okay? So not all of them. But let's start down here. We'll go with the number one most famous. Anyone know what this is? You see it wild out in the forest? Manzanita. It's starting to bloom right now, so it's got a bell-shaped flower. Bees use this as a pollinator. It's one of the few things when they first come out of hibernation, they're very hungry. So the bees will go out and forage. It's one of the few things that they can find that they can bring back to the hive and feed all their young stuff. So we do sell 3, 4, I forget how many varieties of manzanita. We're trying to introduce more of them. The standard one, Howard McMahon, gets as big as you and I. It's kind of too big. Sometimes you don't need a plant this big in the yard. So we introduced this one. This is, what's the name of this one? Oh, Chieftain. Panchito and Chieftain are a dwarf size. They get this big. All of a sudden now this fits anywhere you want. So we get the standard red stems. So as it matures, the bark gets redder and redder. As it puts on more bark, it becomes brighter as it grows. But it looks like this in winter. It'll put a bell-shaped flower on it. In fact, do I have here? This is the ground cover manzanita. This is called knick-knick. Same, you can see they're related. Just this one grows hip high. The native one grows head high, and this one grows, this is as tall as it gets, and it just spreads like this. Great ground cover. You can see the bell shape. They all have this red bark, green foliage, and this bell-shaped flower. Okay, manzanita. Hip by hip by hip by hip. Just do this. It's going to be that big. Now that might be optimistic. I'd go 3 or 4, 3.5. Okay. Question was, how big does it grow? I'll try to be better at that. Also, the next one's going to have, I'll just cover it. Javelina, don't eat it. God, the pigs, oh my gosh. This is one that grows wild. You'll see out in the forest. Actually, these two are related. These are the same. Come out of there. This is called Ellie Agnes or silverberry. The native name, Ellie and Agnes, put them together. That's the botanical. But silverberry is how people ask for them. This one gets up quite large. You can tell it has a native look to it. The way you can tell, typical natives, they've got a color. The photosynthesis is on this side. On the back side, frequently the leaf is, pull another one off, is white. So this is an efficiency thing. Keeps it from perspiring. It'll only lose water on this side. It's very waxy. This side's coated in this felt. So it doesn't perspire. Very efficient on its water use. And it keeps the animals off of them. Because that felt, typically when you see a 2-colored leaf, it means the animals aren't going to bother it because the plant has created itself to throw off this felty thing. So when you start to eat it, you're kind of going, I need some water. That's no good. So they don't eat this one. The way you will tell if this is around you anywhere within probably 100 yards is you'll smell a very sweet, like orangey gardenia smell. It's very, very, very strong. I think very stronger than even lilacs. It's a very fragrant flower. Flower is small, you don't see it, but super fragrant. But a good evergreen, I would plant this over red tip botania, or I do plant this one. I like this gold shape. You can see this. It's the same plant, same blue. We've just figured out how to put a variegation on it so it has this very handsome gold look. Really good with a real dark rock. Sometimes you put more green and more blue out there with that mocha colored rock we spread around. That's popular today. Before that, it was beige, and before that, it was purple. So every few years, the colors of the rock change. But with dark colored rocks, these bright yellows and golds look really good. And it doesn't burn. So a lot of gold plants, they tend to burn in the sun. This one just thrives. Perfect. Surround it with asphalt. Put it right by the driveway. It's going to love the heat. It's going to love the wind. And I would think these things, if you don't have a drip system, you could easily maintain these just by hand. Wouldn't take much. In fact, manzanita, don't put it on irrigation. You will, personal experience, you will kill it. Just water it by hand and forget. Go on a vacation for 2-3 weeks, for a month. It'll thrive. So that's manzanita for you. Yeah. Service for, oh, fertilization. So the survey online, thanks, great question, actually. This goes for anything, really. Lilacs, we mainly hear this from lilacs. Fertilization, phosphorus, nitrogen, phosphorus, potash. That middle number causes flowers and roots. So bigger, if you want big tomatoes, phosphorus. You want flowers, bigger lilacs, bigger, more forsythia, middle number for phosphorus. So, okay, so, you know, I don't know. I don't think so. I've never noticed it. No, and you hardly even see the flowers. They're just, there's so much foliage, and they're white and tiny. Yeah. Oh, they're big ones. Oh, that's good. I can see I'm going to have to be detailed. I got my accountant, nurse, engineer person over here. They need all the details. Got it. So that's going to be head high, kind of this big. Okay. Call it. I've got some that are well above my height, and I'm pretty tall, so they're up about this tall and full. So, I mean, like you could make a hedgerow out of them. I've got very dark ground cover, dark fence. I've got cedar fence. It's dark, it's painted or stained chocolate or dark mocha colors, very dark. And so I put that in front of that, and it just pops. Just like you go, whoa, that's pretty cool. But it's like the lights are on. It's very pretty. Yuccas, agaves, this spiky things. These grow wild here. Here's the most popular ones. This is #1 seller by far. This is red yucca. This is a mature one. This is as big as it gets. Only the flower will grow about twice the height. Has this beautiful red flower that blooms a very long time. The only maintenance you do on this, you do it about now, is you take that flower stalk from last year, just cut it off as far as you can without harming yourself. These aren't really, they don't really cut you too much. They're pretty soft, but they're kind of just, they're everywhere. So red yucca also comes in yellow. Gets about, with the flowers on it, maybe hip high, but the foliage only gets this big and the flowers go above this. Hummingbirds love this. Actually, hummingbirds love all yuccas. They like all the flowers, whether it's a white flower or red flower, it doesn't matter. They like yuccas. So the other one that comes just like this is giant hesperella or giant yucca. This one is this plant on steroids. Sometimes you want something a little bigger than just this knee-high thing. Sometimes you want it to be up like this in the corner of your yard. You want it to be native looking, but just bigger. This gets easily, I think chest high with, I believe these are white flowers that hover this tall. Okay, animals are not going to bother this except for pocket gophers do tend to like the roots of yuccas because they're real fleshy and rooty. They got a lot of starch to them. So if you see little mounds around your yuccas, come see me. I'll show you how to kill them because they deserve to go away to someplace heavenly, not eating your yucca that's finally established, okay? This one, these are all cousins. These are all the same plant. They're just blonde, redhead, or brunette. Which one do you, that's the only real difference. Their foliage changes. So this one is a bright star yucca. This has a white flower. This gets quite large. Gets maybe, mine is about this big around, quite old, this big around and about this tall, and this beautiful mound to it. It has white flowers in the summer. but it does this in the winter. Isn't that pretty? I've got mine on the back patio, north facing. It is cold in a pot. It is exposed to the worst of the worst. And it just looks like this. It's happy all the time. I put it down there because it's dark. North side of your house is just dark. It's 2.5 stories. It's built into the side of a mountain. I mean, it's just like I could probably still find snow over there. It's been cold. It's just, this guy thrives. So yuccas like that. These will go down to 0 degrees easy. Okay, so yuccas, have fun with them, collect them. We don't do cactus. We do yuccas. We don't do cactus. We do agaves or century plant. That's the one where the flower grows. The rumor is it blooms once every 100 years. That's the name, century plant. Has that flower that grows from here to the moon. Like you can watch it grow by the day almost. It's amazing. That one does really well here. The one yucca, or the one cactus that we do grow is, try not to have it bite me. Don't put this where the grandkids are going to be running around. Your dogs are going to be pouncing around. The puppies will like impale themselves. Choyas, or jumping cactus, or teddy bear cactus, has several names. And prickly pears, they do good because they've got enough antifreeze in them to get them through these harsh winters. You're trying to grow a saguaro up here. You're trying to grow barrel cactus. I've got a couple of them that were really borderline where the barrel cactus will grow. If you protect them and you're really a gardener and you're kind of nerdy, you like reading garden magazines in January during a snowstorm, you can probably grow barrel cactus. If you're this is your second home and you're not going to be here in the winter, you go down to Phoenix or Scottsdale, probably not ideal. Go with prickly pears because this one you can't kill. What happens is they freeze out and they turn to black mush and they fall over. Most cactus. So if you're going to, I'm going to prove Ken wrong. I'm going to have cacti. Going to Phoenix and we're haul them up the hill and we're going to have these. Have fun for the summer, and then come winter, they're going to die. Okay, and your cactus are slow growing, so they're very expensive. But this has a bright pink flower to it. It's got a lot going on for it. Can be a little invasive. I mean, it just keeps growing, keeps mounding, keeps running, wants to take over the yard because it loves growing up here. They're very easy to prune because you just take your long handled like hedgers and you get in there, prune it off, you pick it up with the hedgers, with the shears, and you throw it away in the dumpster. And that's kind of how you thin it. Keep it in check. So prickly pears, this one does grow here. How we doing? We're doing okay. We're right on time. Couple perennials. I try to get a couple perennials too. So I try to get shrubs, flowery things, and then maybe a tree. So although I don't have an evergreen tree, although I've got pinyon pines, pine trees, of course. What else? Tree form, evergreen, native. That's it. Pine, junipers, got those. I've got the native junipers out there. You can peruse all those at your leisure. These are, we use these a lot in rock gardens because they're so tough. These are perennial succulents or sedums. They come in a lot of different colors. Ice plant, this is bronze carpet. But this is how they look in the winter. They'll have a fluorescent colored flower. You've maybe seen a little bit of that here, but here in another few weeks, they'll be in bright, full color, and they just look like this. They just kind of creep and crawl. Kind of a designer insider tip. I love planting these. You can see how they're wanting to run. I love putting these at the front edge of containers, tall ones, and these will actually flow until they actually touch the ground. They just want to escape. They want to go and run. They want to run out of their pot, run around the rocks. They want to run. So it's as tall as it gets, and it just keeps going like this. Yep. No worry about frost. For these, now, sedums, there's a lot of sedums. If you're from Southern California, they're famous for their sedums over there. Most of them are tropical. They won't winter over. Of course, the ones I'm going to show you here, my friends, I want you to be successful. I'm going to show you the perennial ones that come back every year. Yeah. Deer and javelina. Let me think. Now, I've got this one in a bucket in my front yard, right there where the javelina are a real pain. I've got electric fence. I'm trying to always keep them out, and they don't bother this one. I don't know about I don't know about this one. I would assume they're okay, but I know this one, personal experience, and the blue one. There's a blue one. I personally experienced they don't bother. If you're really questioning that, I'm a strong believer in planting a test victim. Put one out there, see how it does, because they're going to notice the first day. This is in their living room. You put something new in your living room, you notice it like that. That evening, they're going to, hey, I wonder what this is. Hey, Bob, get over here. Let's look at this thing. Let's check this thing out. And you'll know within days if they're going to get them. Okay. This is a new one you've probably never seen. This is Mediterranean mound. We found this over in Albuquerque. This is a high altitude plant. This is what it looks like. It's evergreen, perennial. Gets up maybe a little bit taller than this, has this mounding effect to it like this. But it has these bright pink, not bright, has a pinky flower to it. I'm a man. I was only given 7 crayons in my box, so I can't get the pink exactly right, but I can, like you gals, if some of you have been given 64 crayons, you're so good at it. But it has this color pink, cover it like this all spring. And it just has this soft, very soft, soft foliage to it. And it smells good, which means rabbits, javelina are not going to bother it. Okay, Mediterranean mound. That's it for the native stuff. Let me get one more, I guess. I should cover this. This is my transition plant between native and shade. This will grow anywhere you put it. Be careful, because it can take over anywhere you put it, because it's so happy. This is a true native. This is called creeping Mahonia, or creeping Oregon grape. You'll see this growing wild, usually underneath the oaks and that kind of stuff out in the forest. Mine looks like this. It's starting to bloom. It'll bloom all spring. And then the reason they call it Oregon grape is it does put on a little tiny grape. So, and the birds love it. It's a bird attractor. But it has this kind of red tinge to it in the winter. And then it will start growing and turn this bright green to it. This one, the reason I say it can be a bit aggressive, it's got rhizomes, it's got runners that kind of go like this. So it keeps coming. It'll invite itself in for dinner if you let it. I mean, it just comes in and wants to grow and take over. So don't put this in the middle of your flower beds, raised beds, or all you'll have is this. Put it on the outer edge where it kind of gets neglected. It'll be better. Yeah. So will it grow up a fence? We know you're there. We're glad you tuned in. We're glad you gave your front row seat right here. So will it grow up a fence? It's not a vine. I do have a couple vines that are evergreen. This is more of a ground cover. So I use this one personally. I've got this majestic juniper. I mean, you cannot put your hands around it. It's hundreds of years old. When I first moved in, it was just a big green ball. It just went right to the ground. I've now limbed it up so I can walk underneath it and I can see the structure of the bark. It's very interesting. It's an alligator juniper. So you've got shaggy bark and alligator. There's 2 types, native. I wanted to see the structure, so I've uplit the bark. It's just a piece of art by itself. I wanted to have an underplanting because it's got this huge space. It's this big a space. It's taken up half, a quarter of the yard. I wanted to planted some gardens there. And so I tried a few things and I killed a lot of things. Junipers have this way of killing. They just basically bury everything that's planted underneath them. They're defending their territory. They don't want to share sun, food, water. Oh, they want all this space to be mine. The way they do that is they shed a lot. They have a lot of litter. And then they taint the soil, actually poison the soil so only they can grow, nothing else. This one has done magically. It's really thrived. Now it's this beautiful mat of this underneath this juniper, and it looks great. I've got pieces of art there, and it just kind of looks like a garden with natives, and I don't care for it. It's like I couldn't find the emitters to start this. I could not go back and find where the emitters are because it's just grown so much. So Oregon grape. Would grow underneath anywhere. Anywhere you plant Oregon grape, it will grow. Anywhere. Slopes, rocks. It does need some dirt. It won't grow in granite. I mean, it does need something to kind of grab into, some common sense gardening things, but I'm talking to gardeners here. So it's very versatile, very versatile. What I do is I'll plant it, I'll put it on my drip irrigation until it gets established. And now it's so matted, I can't find the irrigation. So I kind of go, okay, it's happy. Keep growing. And it does, keeps growing. Okay. There's 3 models. There's Oregon grape, standard. There's compact, it's half the size. And there's creeping, ankle level. So there's 3 heights. They all look the same. I can't identify them just by looking at the plant. I got to actually read the tag or kind of guesstimate by oh, it's a tall one. It looks pretty tall. It's got to be either compact or standard. But there's 3 sizes. Okay. So in front of your fence, just plant the bigger one and it'll grow. Okay. Shade plants. A lot of you in the forest, we all have a north side of the house. We all have a shady spot. That's actually hard to grow things. It's harder to grow things in the shade than there is in the sun because we've got more sun. So there's more options for sun. So I thought I'd go a little bit deeper on the shade plants just because maybe they're not known as much. And we got to start with the most famous, these 2, this one and this one, because people are surprised we can grow them here. But it's because they got these waxy leaves. Again, you see a rhododendron or azalea, it's these 2 guys. They got this real thick, waxy leaf, very leathery leaf, which means they're very good at preserving their moisture. So they focus all that energy on the flowers. And so these will be bright pink, bright red, bright purples, bright. The brightest flowers in the garden are from these 2 plants, rhododendrons, rhodies, and azaleas. Pick your color, pick your style, and they do well. They've grown in full sun in other parts of the country, not here. So the full sun is going to burn them back. The tag says grows in full sun. And then you've got experience in Oregon of them growing in full sun, in Minnesota, full sun. This elevation, at this southern latitude, is kind of going to burn back the leaves. It will grow in full sun, but you'll hate it because the tips will burn back and it'll look sickly all the time. It'll take some sun, but keep it out of that midday 10 to 2 sun, that brutal June, July sun. They don't like that. That's when you see the damage. Okay. Animals don't eat these. I've seen up at Hacienda, Timber Ridge, at the Copper Basin area, there are big established rhododendrons right there where the deer roam free. Your neighbors are feeding the deer right next to you. They're still looking good. They haven't bothered them. Okay. So these are great. You could grow these in a pot. I haven't grown a rhododendron in a pot. Actually, they do have a dwarf one, PJM. You could grow that in a container if you want that on the deck or that covered patio. If you had a bigger pot, you could probably grow that for years and years and years in a container. Look really good. Okay, these 2 guys. Yep. Yeah. No terracotta. Do not plant in terracotta here. So the question was, can you plant in terracotta here? That's that orangey Italian clay. There's some higher end German clay. And I've tried to sell, I wish I could find a terracotta that would last through the winter. I just can't find the quality is not good enough. So you got Mexican, Italian, and German. There's different grades. German is a bright red, real bright orangey. Italian's your standard, your grandparents use Italian. The Mexican is all that, it's got that charred kind of sidewalls to it. I've seen that melt in the rain. So it's just different qualities. The water gets inside and as it expands, it just shatters, just destroys that. You want to go with a glazed, heavy, either porcelain, which would be American, very expensive stuff, fiberglass, which is real lightweight, pretty strong, but pretty expensive. Or you go the glazed stuff that we have at Waters Gardens. So you can buy plants that don't break in the winter. Do one of those. And I would say probably go with for these bigger plants, go with a 14 to 18 inch, something like that, or bigger. So it's about quantity of soil. It's not about the size. It's about the more soil you have, the more mistakes you can make before it dries out and dies. Okay. Holly, #1 East Coast plant. This grows out in full sun in Virginia, not in Arizona. Okay, so this is going to be more of it. It'll take amazing amount of sun, not that 10 to 2 heat sun. I'd say no more than 6 hours of sun. It'll take west sun. It's pretty hot. It'll take east sun. It loves that. but it won't take that midday in June. That's when you want to watch it, okay? So north side, east side, west side, not south side, okay? Hollies they need male, female, they need pollinators. So to get the red berries you're seeing here, this typically the females put the berries on, men just are these scraggly, ugly things in the back row. We plant back over there. We don't want you to see him, but he's got to pollinate all the gals so they berry up. Here we've bred or grafted onto the same plant, male and female. It's called berry magic. And so if you're just doing one or two, this will pollinate itself on the same plant. And so now you've got a plant that gets up about this tall, chest high, about this big, this round, nice, full, thick holly leaves with red berries. Okay. Holly, holly, holly. Where did I get this one? Right there. This, you'd be surprised, there's two varieties of gardenias we grow here. Now, this is how it looks in the winter. Mine is starting to bud up. I've got on the north side, that north slope, I've got huge patios. We do a lot of entertaining in the summer on our north side because it's just shaded. It's beautiful. Cuts the wind down. We have these out there to kind of add that fragrance, that gardenia fragrance. It's very unique. Most of your southern gardenias are not going to grow here. They freeze out in the winter. This one goes down to, I think, minus 10 degrees. Well, I mean, something we'll never, ever see that kind of cold. So anyway, white flowers about this big. This one is, I didn't look before I brought it. This is Gardenia First Edition Sweet Star. Sweet Star. It's a single with a star of 5 petals. About that big, super fragrant. Okay, that's yew. I got to do yews because the East Coast folks love your yews. This loves growing here in the shade. Now, in New York City, this grows very tall. Hicks yew. This is like Paul Hicks is a friend of mine, the guy that developed this. He's from New York City. They made this. They put it on estates. It comes up this big tower, just pillar, goes straight up to the moon. I've got 2 in my backyard. They got to be at least 1.5 stories high and about this big around. I wanted to cover up this gigantic stucco wall that is so hideous to look at. No windows, just sterile. I mean, prison bars would be an upgrade for this. It's ugly. And so I planted a couple of these to soften up that 2-story, just sterile. It's stucco to the garage. It's that. And now they're stunning. I mean, you just look at them, you go, I've turned this lemons into lemonade kind of stuff with Hicks yew. But it's facing north, and it just hardly sees the morning sun. It doesn't see sun after that. It's beautiful. So this is actually a conifer. It's related to your pine trees. It comes from that same family of plants, believe it or not. It does put a little berry on, which can be poisonous. So kind of don't eat the berries. Don't encourage kids to eat the berries. Just kind of, that's really something to worry about. Don't plant this one. I've never had a problem with it, but I've got dogs. I've got curious dogs. You know, puppies, they'll eat anything. They're like, I'll taste it. Let's see if I live. Stupid puppies. Oh my gosh. Okay, that's shade. Let's go over a couple of flowering things. This is the best of these 2 flowering things. Oh, and camellias. Okay. Lenten rose. This is a surprising one. This has been in bloom for a month. It blooms in the winter through spring, and it repeats. Like, can't get enough flowers to it. Has a nice mound like this. True evergreen perennial flower. Does great in containers, right off the north side patios. It'll be blooming when everything else is cold. Barely starting to, your mums are just barely starting to show. This will be in bloom. Okay, yeah. Lenten rose, or starts with an H. Hellebore. I love gardeners. See, you got a brain fart and they'll cover for you. That's good. Yeah, hellebore. Deer and javelina do not bother them. Yep. Rabbits, nothing bothers us. It's got a real thick, leathery kind of flower. That's the reason it lasts that flower just lasts so long. Most folks don't know about this because I will sell out of these before the spring season hits, and then there's no more. So they bloom early, so we have them, and then all of a sudden they're out, and then you've got your echinaceas and your, Mexican hats, the other things that bloom later. 18 inches tall is how big they get. Kind of moundy like this. They're not real big. This one is periwinkle or vinca. It's got a lot of names it goes by. This is vinca minors to be specific, and it just does this a long time. This one's invasive, so be careful. Do not inject this in the middle of your flower bed, or nothing will grow there ever again except this. So this is one that where nothing else will grow. This is where you put this. This is as tall as it gets. Maybe it'll mat up to be about maybe 6 inches, ankle high or so. And then it just puts these tendrils that run and just keeps going. It'll just keep on. It'll go out the driveway, down the road, to your neighbors. It's just going, okay? This is a real aggressive one, maybe too aggressive for some spots. So, but vinca, it just does this a long time. This is as tall as it gets. Oh, really? Oh, she had something that ate this. This is super interesting. Let's find out more. So what was it? Pack rats. I'll bet it was pack rats. Yeah, you think? Have you ever seen her in the, like 2 o'clock in the morning? This big old rat that's like the size of a small cat with a real long tail, or beady eyes that like follows you. Sometimes they'll eat that. Anyway, good. Have it eat more of it because it probably needs to be pruned back. So that's good. It'll keep it in check. You have them eat yours too? Rabbits eat it? Oh, so rabbits eat it too. So for you rabbit and pack rat people, maybe not the best plant. But it's still there, isn't it? It's still growing. Oh, is it? Okay, so they've narrowed, fertilize it, encourage it to grow. Okay, I should also hand this out. So we got to cover bark beetle because it's time for your pine trees before we end. We're doing good. And we got to cover food and that kind of stuff. So I'm going to send you a couple of handouts. One, the plants, the evergreen plants for here. So if you're a note taker, you'll have the list shortly this afternoon. I really want you to have the bark beetle handout because it's just so important. Or Ips beetle, it goes by a couple names, a real cute little bug. We'll cover it in a second, but you got to know, and it's just going to be a lot of detail. I want to have to give that to you. If you want that, put your email down here, and it'll be a link that'll be, you can read on your phone, your tablet, wherever, print it out. Here you go. Give that to you there. Just kind of put your name down, and it'll be to you very shortly. And then please, if you could, some of you, take a moment, write it clearly, because I cannot read some of your writing. It's atrocious. You doctors are the worst. What is that? Okay. The sun plants, sun. Most of us have sun. These are the most popular sun plants. Maybe not native. Natives are sunny too, but these are the pretty, bright, glorious ones. You kind of go, wow, I want more of those. That's these. Okay, we'll start with, where do I start? There's so many. Let's go with cotoneaster or cotton Easter. That's how people spell it and say it, but it's cotoneaster is how you want to sound professional. So these three are all the same thing. This is our native one. This grows wild. You'll see a plant about hip high, moundy, like this, gray leaves like this. This is a native cotoneaster. Okay. You know the native one grows here, the entire family of plants will grow here. Many times you get too much blue. This is classic Arizona blue color. You can get too much of that. Oaks are blue, pinyon pines are blue, a lot of blue. Sometimes you want to have something bigger, brighter, greener. And so you go with red clusterberry cotoneaster. This is a big, aggressive plant. Don't plant it right next to the house, or your house will be obliterated. You'll be pruning it back every month. It'll be a laborious plant. This is going to be a 10 by 10 by 10 and want to grow more. Great hedge plant. If you got a neighbor that's just obnoxious, just kind of hide them. You can put it there and just kind of, they will be gone by the year's end. They'll just be disappeared. I had down at the farm in Skull Valley, I had huge propane timber, huge propane tank, like submarine size. It's huge, just heating the greenhouses. Ugly, out on my back porch. No one wants to see that. As I planted 2 of them, and it disappeared in a year. Dunk, just disappeared. So if you got some ugly sites, thank you. Yeah, perfect. Yeah, that'll work. I'll talk about this one next. So big aggressive one, I think this is far better plant than red tip photinia, which is the #1 seller. I put my kids through college just selling red tip photinia. That's the one with bright red color foliage coming out. That one gets diseased, deer eat it. I mean, there's just problems with it. I make more money on maintenance. I should probably just give them away so I can make money on them on the backside of the maintenance piece. This one, nothing eats it. It's consistent all the time. It looks like this without any care. I mean, javelina, rabbits, deer, nothing bothers it. The reason they call it red clusterberry is in the spring, clusters of white flowers form. Probably in another 2-3 weeks, they'll be in bloom. And then those flowers turn into clusters of red berries. Okay, instead of, you see this one's got berries kind of scattered all over. This got scattered all over. This one does clusters of red, the same red berry. They're all about pea-size berry. This is a ground cover variety. We sell 2 or 3 varieties of just this tall as it gets, but it does this. So for hillsides, rock embankments, erosion control, we all have this big area of rock that is just so sterile and lunar. You just want to soften it up. This is a good one on the edges to kind of give you that green, something green to look at. An evergreen. This is what it looks like in the winter. It holds its berries. The berries are starting to shrivel a little bit. Birds will probably come in and eat it. And then it'll have white flowers again, and the cycle starts over. Okay. All of them had red berries. All of them had this kind of same kind of foliage, just different sizes. What size do you like? And obviously, colors change. Cotoneaster. Since I did mention the #1 seller, we might as well cover it. This is red tip photinia. Starting to grow. All the new growth comes out red. Gets up. This is a monster. It gets big. I mean, small children, dogs have been lost in photinia. I mean, this is a big boy. Okay, this gets too big for a lot of, don't put this out by the mailbox, or the postman will never get to your mailbox again within just a couple of years. It gets so big, or you'll be pruning on it like crazy. So it's too much maintenance. Put it out there by the corner. It's probably only made for big yards down the driveway, 5 or 6 feet from the driveway, because it's going to want to come in and drive in with you if you're not careful. It's a big one. Okay, this is called red dynamo. It's a smaller leafed photinia. It has a thicker foliage to it, and the red is just super intense. Whereas the old ones are kind of have more of a muted orangey, lighter red. This is red dynamo, new introduction that you'll only find literally at Waters Garden Center. So literally, it's a good plant for your red tip photinia. I mentioned vines. Let's just cover a couple vines. There's 3-4 vines that are evergreen. If you have fences, you want to crawl, you've got that big rock face out the back. You walk out your slider and it's right there, huge rock face. You need something to make it feel kind of softer, alive, garden-esque. This one your grandparents grew. I'm trying to reintroduce this. It's such a hardy plant. You cannot kill this thing. This is pyracantha. So this has been around for decades, for generations. It's such a strong plant. We put this into commercial settings because you just can't kill this thing. Gets up easily, 10 feet by 10 feet. You can train it. You go up fences, up walls, up trellises, or just let it go. Has an orange or red berry to it, white flowers. These ones as kids, you picked off the berries and chucked them at each other, or at least I did as a kid. Hey, I gotcha. That's this guy. Okay, good strong plant, loves our wind, sun, our water, our soil. I mean, it's so tough. Okay, yep. So she asked, are these the ones her mother said were poisonous to eat? I know that birds eat them in the winter and they get drunk on them because they'll ferment. They'll go after the robins, or they just love a party. They bring chips, dip, and they just eat the berries. They're going, let's go back at it again till the berries are gone. I doubt if this one is poisonous. It's probably used in some of the others, or your mother just didn't want you to pick her berries. She told you to leave them alone. So no, I think you're okay. Not that I know of. No animals eat that. They also call it firethorn because it does have big thorns on it. Like, plant it, have your gardener cut it back for you once a year, or just buy good, thick, heavy gloves. You're probably okay. But you got to respect it. I've got a couple of these in my yard. I've got the shorter one, just because they're tough. They just look good all the time. Just have to respect them, like a prickly pear. Just got to respect them like a prickly pear. This is honeysuckle. Now, honeysuckle there's a lot of honeysuckles. This is which one is this? Japanese, Hall's honeysuckle, Lanacea. So this is the one that's evergreen. All the others, deciduous. Actually, this one's I call it semi-evergreen. It can lose some foliage in the winter. It always has foliage, but it can lose some. And if we get a real harsh winter, like we go sub-zero, every 10, 12 years we go sub-zero, it'll defoliate. But most years it's got foliage on it. But it's got the one that yellow flower to it. So it's real fragrant. Pull out the stamens and suck on the stamens, kind of the honey inside the flower. That's this one. This can be a ground cover. It can grow up a trellis. It can grow up a wall. It can grow up. It can grow. It wants to have tendrils and grow. So either on the ground, up a wall, in between rocks, or up a fence is where we mainly grow it. Animals don't eat this. Deer, javelina, nothing bothers it. So all these are full sun, blistering hot sun plants. All these we're covering right now. This one and this one, these are two companions we plant frequently. Come on. Cotoneaster and euonymus. And creeping, do I have a creeping juniper? I thought I did. Creeping juniper. These three we frequently plant together because they're low growing, spreading kind of plants. And you can get too much of a good thing. If you got a big, long 100-foot yard, you don't want all the same thing. You want it to look more natural or garden-esque. So formal is where you line up plants perfectly spaced, crossing the row like soldiers across the yard. That's an East Coast formal design. Here we have more informal. And so it's better to kind of zigzag and mix it up some. So you have some flavor, some things going on. This one is buffalo juniper. Gets up about, I don't know, knee high or so. It kind of spills over like this. Junipers are great. You got to give them respect. You know they're going to do well here because junipers love Arizona. They get a bad rap because they think allergies are a problem. That's the male junipers. Males put on the pollen. Females are not offensive. They're beautiful, shapely. They don't have pollens. They put berries on. They're glorious. Men are a pain in the derriere. They put on pollen. They want to populate the entire hillside. They're the ones that have the pollen issues. So males do the pollen, females don't. And so we just deal with female plants here. So we're not starting by seed. We're starting by cutting so we can get exact. We know what we're getting. And you know what you're buying. It's a better way to sell plants. That's not everywhere that does that. That's unique to us. So these are just tough because you can't kill them. Okay, it's just junipers. This is the #1 selling ground cover in the East Coast. This is winter creeper or euonymus. You can look at how to spell that by taking a photo of the picture later. But this is what it does in the winter. And in the summer, it just turns this nice green. You see this nice green color to it? It does this. It's got a lot of drama to it. For an evergreen, it's got this winter creeper, winter ground cover euonymus, but these just go together really well. And then Cotoneaster we already covered. These are all companion plants. Full sun. I mean, more sun. You want 24-hour sun that take a blow dryer. It's going to thrive. Give it wind. It's going to thrive. It's just going to do well. Yeah. Gold Coast is turning green. Really, that's interesting. Oh, gold tips. Okay. Yeah. So his junipers, which should be gold at the tips, are now just green and boring. He wants excitement. He likes blondes. That's what he wants. We're going to give it to him. So what happens when the pH, you had a pH issue, when the pH creeps up too high, for a lot of plants, which is pretty common. It'll lose its color. So they go back to blue or green or whatever. If you could lower that pH down, it would bring out the color to it. If your plants stop blooming, your tomatoes stop, they shrink. If your roses don't have the fragrance, that's almost always a pH thing. If your pine trees are, we call it chlorotic, have a yellow tinge to it, they've lost their color. Those are all pH issues, this chemistry thing in the soil. It's because your water coming out of the tap or out of your irrigation is very high in pH. And the soil will take on whatever the pH is of the water. Guaranteed your water is at 7 point plus. I've seen 8, 9, 9.5, which is sterile. I mean, that's basically putting alkaline on your ammonia on your plants. It's terrible. And they turn off color. Okay. We'll cover that up. Maybe I'll send the fertilizer handout to the group too. If you put your email down, I'll send that out, and that'll really make a difference on all your evergreens. A couple flowers. This one I mentioned already, ice plant, but this one is pinks, dianthus, and carnations. When you see those three names, they're all cousins. They're basically the same plant. Pinks have a smaller flower. Dianthus, this one, has a little bit bigger flower, and carnations have the bigger flower. They're all this evergreen, perennial mounding flower that has an incredibly long bloom cycle. If you were to deadhead this, when it has a spent flower and go through every couple of weeks and take off all the dead flowers, it'll continue to bloom for you. You can force this thing to bloom nonstop. Nice mounding evergreen, and the animals seem to leave this one alone. Rabbits, javelina, personal experience. Okay. Again, it's got a blue foliage to it, has a blue hue to it. Whenever you see blue into a plant, that's a defensive mechanism that plant is throwing into it to keep the animals off of it. Animals know, don't bother. If I eat blue foliage, it makes me not feel so good. So they tend to leave blue. It's a defense thing plants literally have created over the millennia. These two guys, you notice, have a slight blue hue, blue flowers even. Flowers are so blue, they don't eat them. So lavender, this is Spanish lavender. This is for you. There you go. There you go. It does have that lavendery smell to it. Lavenders do amazing here, as long as you put it in sun and you neglect it. If you water this, if your hobby is not gardening, but it's watering, this is not the plant for you. Because if you're going to kill this, it'll be from overwatering. It likes very heavy drainage soil. So in containers, raised beds, really thrives. So this is going to be up maybe 2 feet or so to 18 to 24 inch, like this, kind of mounding like this. This particular one, you go with the English lavenders. Those are the really big boys. I think Goodwin Creek, and there's some other English lavenders. They do really well as landscape plants. They get up easily hip high. And that's the one with the flowers like a butterfly. I think of these, they look like a bumblebee. And the English look like a butterfly. They kind of float a little taller and lighter. They kind of move with the wind. Both do really well. But don't overwater. Treat them like a native. Yeah?
So many varieties of
Yeah.
lavender.
Yeah, there are.
So would you say universally they grow well?
So there's so many varieties. He's going, which one's the best? Okay, there's 3 kinds. There's English, #1, hardiest, easiest to grow, English. If you're not sure where to go, English. If I'm going to have it out in the yard as a landscape plant, English. That's Goodwin Creek and some others. This is the one, this is called Spanish. Not quite as hardy as the English. It's tough, but not as hardy. If we go sub-zero, we're down into the single digits for a couple weeks, this one's dead. English is going to thrive. But this is the one that gets on the cover of magazines all the time. You get in Horticulture magazine, this is the one they take a picture of. Not English. It's too big. You can't capture its majesty on film. This one you can on film. God, am I dating myself? On digital media. You can't Instagram but you can this one. Okay? So, and then there's French. That's the real fragrant. If you're making potpourris, usually you're using French lavender. And it's the same hardiness as the Spanish. They're all tough. Any of you all could grow them because you're here at a garden class the first week in like March. That's something that says something about you as a gardener. You all can grow it any variety you want. But a novice, I'd probably skew them towards English, just in case. This is, now you got me thinking about lavenders. Catmint, or what's the catnip? Nepeta, there you go. Thank you very much. I love Latin all day long. Catmint, not really evergreen. It's got a long green cycle, amazingly long green cycle. But the beauty with this is right there where Haviland is their main driveway. They bed down right here. You're planting this right next to them. They're not going to bother this. So it's an herb. So it has a real strong herb scent. Herbs, animals don't bother herbs. I know we like rosemary and thyme, but they don't. We do. So herbs are a real good, strong choice if you've got a lot of rabbits and that kind of stuff. So catmint gets up pretty tall, just shy of knee level, kind of mounding like this, gets about this big around. And then it has these blue flowers, blue purpley lavendery flowers. It just covers it. And then a little insider tip, when it gets done blooming, like in June, cut back, I'll take my shears, my hedgers, I cut back all those flowers. I'll kind of give it a real serious haircut, fertilize it with the all-purpose food. We'll show you that in a second. It goes back into bloom just like that. You can get it to bloom over and over again. Kind of like sage, you can get to bloom over and over again just by pruning, deadheading, and giving it some food. Okay. And that, oh, here, these guys are the same. Oh, stay there. There, I mentioned carnations, pinks, dianthus. These guys are related. They're cousins of each other. So both do really well. Okay. Cover a couple pine trees just because we're in pine country. Some you know, some might be new. We're doing time. We're good. This is probably #1 seller. This is Mugo pine, M-U-G-H-O, Mugo pine. Just a low growth. It's related to a ponderosa pine, but it only gets this big and kind of mounds. Just as a nice mounding, easy care, never needs pruning, full sun, grows well here. It has no real problems. This is related to our Colorado spruce, which is what this is. Can you see that on camera? Can you see that? Here, let me see if I can get this up here. Colorado spruce. If you're new to the area, you don't know what it is, you describe it as the one that looks like a Christmas tree. Okay, Colorado spruce, that's it. Okay, so these two guys are related. This is ball shaped, it's called bird nest. I think it's bird nest, pretty sure. Or globe spruce. This just gets a nice big ball. Kind of nice short ball. These are the ones you put up by the driveway. You get a walkway up to the front door. You got beds on either side. That's this in a container off the back patio, the raised bed. That's how it's going to look. It just turns into more, gets prettier and prettier. These two guys, these are companion plants. They grow very similar in size. Just green or blue. Which one do you like? #1 seller by far of all the spruce trees, this one. This is Alberta spruce. This is one that grows painfully slow. Maybe if you've got really green thumbs, you might be able to get it to reach 3 inches, maybe. This is one that you definitely want to spend a little bit more money on if you don't want a big one. You don't want to grow this to that because it could take a decade. You should get the bigger one now. But these are the reason they're #1 sellers are they stay small. So you put them in the front door, in the container, put some flowers around them, and they're never going to you can use it for years and years and years, just like this. Okay. No pruning. It just takes on this natural Christmas tree shape. This is the youngest size I sell. I got them all the way up to as tall as I am and this big around, just perfectly shaped without any pruning. So very low maintenance. Yeah. Alberta spruce, Alberta. Full sun, just shade. It's pretty versatile. So I've seen it in a lot of shade, but I find the thickest, fullest ones, the prettiest ones, are in more sun. I'd say at least 6 hours of sun or more if you could. Okay. And then one you may not know that grows here, got to show it off. This is magnolia, you southern folks. He just started drooling. I can have magnolia, southern magnolia. The southern magnolia does not grow at this altitude. This is a dwarf Alberta. This is, do you have the actual Alba or which one? Oh, nice. Okay. Oh, awesome. So I'm corrected. We've got one person. I know she's a regular here, very hardcore gardener. She can grow southern magnolias. The one I grow, which is good. That's great because that gets bigger. They're huge. I'd be interested to know if it goes to a sub-zero. So we haven't seen that one of those in a while. It goes through that event. Ooh, that's good. I'll start selling them here. Right now, we found an offshoot of southern magnolia. This is called Alta Southern Magnolia. It's a southern, truly gets that big white flower, very fragrant, same flower. The leaves are a little bit smaller. It's a little slower growing. It's not that huge shade tree magnolia, which is southern. It's an offshoot of that. So think of it as a dwarf southern magnolia. This one will go down to -10. I have personal experience. I got 2 of them. They've been through 2 extreme cold events, and they came through like champs without defoliating. They just keep their green. So that snow we had a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks, whenever that was, kind of took it in the chin a little bit because it's evergreen. It loaded up on all that snow. I kind of went shunk. I kind of swept it off a little bit, and it's starting to perk right back up, and it's going right back at it. So I did protect it from the snow some, just because it's got these big leaves that hold that weight. I didn't want to break a branch. So mine are probably 10, 12. No, I put them back in the Great Recession, whenever that was, 15 years ago. So now they're up easily 12 and 15. They're getting to where I can't tell how tall they are. They're matching pairs behind a fountain kind of thing. They're kind of the backdrop. They kind of bring the eye to the art and stuff. And they're consistent. They're just easy care. So magnolias, you can have those. And that's what I got. I want to cover bark beetle real quick. Yep. Weeping. Oh, yeah. They missed a couple. I was hoping you wouldn't catch that. Lily of the valley, shrub, very fragrant. We carry 3 or 4 varieties down there. Shade plant. Animals don't bother it. But full shade, I would say no more than 6 hours of sun, and definitely not in the middle of the day. So shade. This is fully mature. I've got smaller ones. This is as big as it gets, and it just does this. It's budded up all winter, and then it starts to bloom. It's just starting to open now. It'll bloom all through all spring. Very fragrant type of flower to it. This is as big as it gets. Yeah, this is you're only going to find a fully mature. We like fully matured plants here, so and our customers seem to go, I don't want to wait. I'm retired. I want to make this thing go now. We try to bring in some establishment. This is as big as it gets. Yep. Not, how messy is it? Not messy at all. A companion that goes with that, just because I know you're going to ask. This is camellia. They're companions, Lily of the Valley, camellia. This is a tall variety, and then that's a short thing. So the companion, you can layer things together. But this has been in bloom for a while now. It's got these, again, for you Californians, you love your camellias. This is called Ice Princess Camellia. This is one that will take our cold. Most camellias are tropical. The winter's going to take them out. This one is fine. Bark beetle. There's a little tiny bug that gets into pine trees, spruce trees. There's a couple varieties of that. Bark beetle gets into the bark, the main trunk. Ponderosas, pinyon pines, basically anything stressed, they're going to go after. And they're the guys that finish off. They sense something stressed in the forest. They come in and they go, okay, get rid of the weak. They have a party. Chips and salsa, someone brings and they create a colony. And they attack a tree by the hundreds, if not thousands. And they'll girdle just underneath the bark. You don't see it. Just underneath the bark, they just girdle the tree. They eat the wood just underneath the bark. They eat the whole thing around. It's now girdled and it dies like that. Usually it's in June, just collapses all of a sudden, boom. What to do? If that one, Tip borers, there's another bug that's very, very similar. It gets on the tips of cypress and junipers and stuff. You'll see the tips, we call it flagging. The outer edges just kind of die and they kind of fall. So it's called flagging. You'll see that in your neighborhood sometimes. Look for that. That's a bug that's eating its way through the trunk. And then scale. Scale crawls up onto pinyon pines mainly. Pinyon pine scale is a common thing. If you're in those wildland interface where the manzanitas and the junipers grow and the pinyon pines, scale is there. The way you can tell is you'll see a needle and you see a little dot on the needle. That dot is a bug, guaranteed. It doesn't look like a bug. It's a scale. It's been scaled over. Keep ladybugs and lacewings out and from eating it. It's a protection thing. If you see that, it is serious. You need to get on this. If you've got a majestic pine tree, let me take a little sip here. If you repositioned your house around these pinyon pines, junipers, some of these evergreens that are native, you should probably take care of them. Just once a year, give them a tree and shrub drench, this stuff. You do not need to be an arborist. You can do this yourself on the cheap. Not that this is cheap, but it's the arborist. It's just, you're going to spend $1,000. Have them spray this stuff. You can do this for $100. So easy to do. You mix this up in a watering can. You just pour it right where the trunk meets the soil. The plant will absorb this underneath the bark, and it taints that wood for a year. And you're doing it now for this year's treatment, okay? If you don't do that, entire neighborhoods have been obliterated from pinyon pine scale. Bark beetle groves have taken out entire clusters of ponderosas. And so it's just painful. And then once they start dying, there's no recovery. There's no like bringing it back. Once the stress happens, it's too late. With evergreens, it's just that's why I just treat mine every year, this time of year, if they're important. You can't do the whole forest, but some are just really, if you lost it would really hurt you. And it would totally change the dynamic of your landscape. Treat those. So if they're evergreens, so bark beetle. The beauty with this, the Fertilim's tree and shrub, we used to have our own that we used to make. It's called Plant Protector. This is actually the newest technology. This is Plant Protector 2.0. It actually will treat the main trunk and it keeps up with the new growth. So the old technology, it treated what was there, and then the new growth was unprotected. So you get tip borers and stuff. This one actually treats the whole plant better, I guess. So there's different grades. It's a tree and shrub drench. I would do that with my evergreens, and I would do, this is the best evergreen food ever. This is 744 all-purpose plant food. You folks have been with us for any length of time, you know, you've used this. It works. It really does work. It's granular. It's organic. But we front load it with a lot of sulfur. Sulfur makes things more acidic. It brings the pH down, so things become more acidic. Evergreens love acidity. So all of them. All plants like to be more acidic, but evergreens especially like to be more acidic. That's what's going to bring out more of that color, better growth. It's going to keep that chlorosis, the yellowing effect on your pine trees. So you're doing this right now. These two things you're doing this month. Can't emphasize that enough, okay? If you have Colorado spruce, things that are blue, you want to bring out the blue color of things. You notice a lot of these evergreens have blue to them. That's aluminum. That's what the plant is taking up aluminum and coating its foliage, its green foliage with this aluminum coating. It's a mineral, and so it creates this blue. So if your Colorado spruce, your globe spruce, your blue spruce have now started to turn green, just give it some aluminum sulfate, and all of a sudden it's going to be, the new growth coming out will be bright blue, brighter. Arizona cypress, blue junipers like moon glows. This is going to really bring out that color. Okay? It's we're going into gardening 2.0, 201 or something. It's deeper than just fertilizer. It's not a fertilizer, it's a mineral. Brings out the color. Yeah. Sure, sulfur. Gotcha. Oh, good question, actually. That's really good. I love my gardener questions. Right on. I like being stumped sometimes. Huh. I should research that some more. She was asking what's the difference between aluminum sulfate and just straight sulfur. So straight sulfur lowers the pH and makes things brighter, more acidic, brings out the flower, the texture of the pine cones, brings out just everything needs sulfur. This is specifically sulfur with aluminum added, so it lowers the pH, but it also has a lot of aluminum. So if you want to bring out that color, this is what you'd use. Can you use them both? Yes. They use this a lot on hydrangeas, hollies. This one you see it written up a lot for garden magazines, but that's more East Coast stuff. Hydrangeas, yeah, they grow here, sorta, not like the Northwest. They're not as big and beautiful. They're harder to grow. This is more appropriate for spruce. Colorado spruce fade, their color fades so often. Oh, camellias would love sulfur. Either one, yeah, either one. Just use one. If you picked one for what you're saying, the plant you're throwing out at me, sulfur was right on the money. You did good. Yeah, don't need both. I would say, so the question was, do I use sulfur in pots? And I would say, no, don't use it in pots. Because you're such a confined space, you can overdo it really easily. Personal experience. It's just personal. I burned some things up, lowered it too much. Plus, containers typically have potting soil, which is peat moss, which automatically has more acidity, and it's really good at drainage. So potting soil is good at flushing out all those nasty stuff. It's better at cleaning itself. In the ground with our hard clay, that's hard. I mean, that's hard gardening in our native soil. Okay, did I bring everything? I could keep going down and down and down. What else? Right now, let's see. Horticultural oil. We are seeing aphids on the pine trees. It's a big aphid. It's about this big. It's black. Looks like a spider. Looks like it's going to suck on your jugular vein or something. Like enjoy some of you too. It's gross. They're generally up at the top of the tree where the soft tissues are. And the indication will be the rock underneath the tree has this glistening, wet look to it. That's always caused by one thing, aphids. You've got aphids up there. If it's a really tall tree, I would say go for the long-term effect, use the drench. This will, because you can't spray 30, 40 feet in the air. It's just hard to, so you use this. If you can spray, this is the least offensive, most organic, least expensive horticultural oil. We usually say use it on fruit trees or roses, but it's quite effective at all aphids in the spring. And it's the least offensive thing you can spray out there. You can spray the dog. It's probably okay. Use some common sense. Probably don't drink it in your coffee. Probably not ideal, but at least it's just a heavy grade oil. That's all it is. Coats the aphids and takes them out. Okay, and I think I'm done. And the last question, I think I went an hour and 15, so I'm already over time. So.
Don't they typically leave those beetle holes in the bark?
Yeah, they can. So her question is, bark beetles, sometimes they'll leave a hole. We are seeing quite a bit right now of fruit trees having bubbles of sap coming out of them. So it's not oozing, but just has bubbles of sap coming out. That's a bark beetle. It's a different kind, a clear-winged wasp, but it's called a peach tree borer. That's what the actual name is. But a little cute little wasp lays her eggs there, and they love to eat fruit wood, especially pitted fruits. If you've got plums, apricots, peaches, nectarines, cherries, you should go walk through because we're seeing quite a few customers come in with these bubbles of sap. There's a hole there that the tree is trying to suffocate that bug, trying to clean itself out. It might need some help from you to do that. We can show you what to do with that. But bark beetle on pine trees have the same thing. If you walk through the forest, you see a ponderosa tree, and you look, and it looks like someone took pinholes. You just poked holes in the bark. That is the exit tunnel of a bark beetle. That tree for sure has had bark beetles. It is under serious stress. If you see any hole or any sap flowing from any tree, it's serious. You're at high risk of losing the tree. You should come talk to us. So if you see that, I'm not putting the alarmist thing out. We've only seen the first indication so far, but it's that storm kind of slowed things down a touch. But I think with this kind of weather, spring is going to hit fast and it's going to go quickly. Just be out there monitoring things. If you see something, put it underneath the microscope. We'll show you, hey, look, it is big and scary. It does have 8 eyes and it should die. Here's how you kill it. So we'll show you how to deal with that. Yeah, good question. I will hang out as long as you want. I'll make sure you all get the perfect. So I'll make sure you look for an email coming from me to you. It's going to be kind of short and sweet, probably and you'll have my personal email now. So anyway, kind of ask a question away and look for handouts here shortly. Yeah. Oh, good. Yeah. Nandina, so she's looking for a colorful shrub off her patio. Is Nandina a good choice? Excellent choice. I should have brought one. So Nandina or heavenly bamboo is what the Californians call it. The rest of the country calls it Nandina. So it looks like a bamboo plant. It's not truly bamboo. It doesn't have the runner. It's not as aggressive. And there's different models. There's Domestica, there's Sienna Sunrise, there's Gulfstream, and there's Harbor Dwarf. There's kind of 4 sizes. Pick the size you want. Sounds like off a patio, you want one about this big. So in a container, in the ground, Nandina is a great choice. I think they're right over there. Good. So yeah, we'll be glad to sell you some of those. It's a good plant. All right, I'll let you clap, and then I'll just hang as long as you want. I'll answer questions as long as you want. Thanks for coming, you all. Open up the curtains if I can reach them.